Hi, James Bush here. I'd like to talk to you about John Thomas Draper, aka Crunchman, aka Captain Crunch. He, alright, we're gonna start with a little background on him. His father was an Air Force engineer, so he grew up around air bases with plenty of equipment, and once before, even as a child, he gathered parts from the Air Force base, and he was able to construct his own radio station. He spent a little bit of time in college, took a few courses. He then joined the Air Force in 1964 and became a radar technician. While in the Air Force, he was playing with access codes and was able to find a way to make free calls through a switchboard, because they didn't have a lot of phone time, and there was very little phones they could use, so they did this to make phone calls to their loved ones and everything. He was honorably discharged in 1968. He started working for many companies and everything in the Silicon Valley, um, but he was already had an interest in phones, and since because computers were not quite available at the time. Phones were like the frontier that you wanted to get into. So he would do a thing where he was able to generate free phone calls, uh, and he learned it from others, which also included blind teenagers with near perfect pitch, and they were able to determine the frequency of which to calculate phone calls. And the reason why John Draper got his nickname Captain Crunch was because he used a whistle from the cereal box of Captain Crunch to make the tone of 2,600 hertz, which was the perfect tone. And this tone was the signal that the call was over, and so they stopped charging, and they were able to remain on the line and talk to the other person that they connected to absolutely free. He even claims that he was able to reach President Nixon because he found out the secret code Olympus, to be able to contact him. And being a joker, he told him there was a toilet paper shortage in Los Angeles. We lead to his first arrest for wire fraud from phone phreaking, um, in 1972, and this was the first of many arrests. Um, he knew the law quite well, as they he was constantly under scrutiny with the law. He After he got out of prison the first time, he was able to work with Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple. Wozniak was 21 at the time. He was working, and it said he was joking in about it, and Steve Wozniak recalled his time meeting John Draper, and he said, um, he was like, "Are you John Draper?" And he's like, "I am he." Which is, I mean, he's a very eccentric man, very, very odd. That was for sure. He was very intelligent. In 1977, he designed a device that could identify phone signals and lines instantly, and this technology would be used later for tone-activated calling menus, voicemail, and other purposes. Um, and at this time, Apple was a company, and Apple decided not to go through with the board because of its association of illegal phoning. It could determine the signals to make free phone calls. This was one of his pros. And another pro was Draper wrote the Easy Writer, which was the first word processor for the Apple II in 1978. According to the Wall Street Journal, he hand wrote the code while serving nights in Alameda County Jail, and then later entered the code into a computer. Um, I would say that some of the cons of John Draper was he was a very difficult man to work with at times. He was very eccentric, very odd behaviored man. He almost seemed that there was sort of a disconnect between him and people. He was also, his hygiene was almost non-existent. There's many accounts stating that his hair was greasy. I mean, there's dirt on him. He smelled terrible. Um, he was missing teeth because he didn't have hygiene. He didn't have health insurance or nothing. Um, and this led a lot of people to not take him seriously because they didn't view him as a professional. Most professionals dress up, they're nice, smell good, present themselves in a professional manner to be taken seriously. And just for that reason, a lot of people wouldn't take him up on some of his ideas because they didn't take him seriously because they thought because of his poor hygiene and appearance that his ideas weren't very professional, and he wasn't going to make a very big contribution. Um, Also, he was in jail a lot. He had several stints where he went to jail. He went to jail probably, I think, at least 4 times. Most of them for wire fraud or some sort of phone fraud. At one point, a judge claimed to him, they said, "You gotta stop, um, making free phone calls." But he was like, "Why?" I mean, he wanted, it thinks it should be free, that it was just, a common right to have his phone calls, and if he could do it, why not? So that landed him in jail numerous times. Um, I mean, he was a very smart man, and he don't think he was, used to his full potential in the early days. I believe he could have revolutionized the way computers are and programs, and probably put us, you know, years into the future with our technology had he been, you know, a mainstay in Silicon Valley and was able to contribute. Because, again, like I said, his jail time and appearance just it didn't sit well with many people, and so they didn't want to entertain any of his ideas because he just didn't seem very professional. Uh, I mean, for a conclusion, I mean he was one of the most famous hackers of all time for with phones. He was one of the greatest phone freaks, as they were called. He made one of the first word processors to be used in computers because Apple II used it as their first word processor, and later on so did IBM. Um, Also, his phone technology, if they would have went through with his phone board, it would have put that technology years into the future because modems didn't have that technology until about 10 years later. Um, and so, as a conclusion, I think John Thomas Draper, Captain Crunch, would have been probably one of the millionaires, if not billionaires, that came out of Silicon Valley and would be up there in status with Steve Wozniak, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, because he was a great mind who a lot of circumstance led to him not reaching his full potential with his jail time being the biggest factor. Um, but that was my presentation on John Thomas Draper, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.